Speaking of these Democrats, oh my gosh, these people are low down. We got to talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center scandal. Oh my gosh,
The
folks.
Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive, sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple of brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. Wow. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups.
I have something to share with you today. Back in 2022, I was threatened by the Southern Poverty Law Center, NAACP, the Democrat Party, because I stood up for teachers in Guntersville, Alabama that was falsely accused of racism. Now, indictments have dropped against the Southern Poverty Law Center. You know why? Because they was paying the KKK to do their work. And think about this. The NAACP works alongside the Southern Poverty Law Center. Isn't that ironic? I went through so much. I stood there by myself trying to protect Guntersville, and I was always right. Isn't that fantastic? Karma has a way of coming back around.
The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front. In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred.
I remember reading. I mean, the SPLC was started back during the 50s and 60s. Yes. I mean, and to hear that now they're being used to put up the same people that used to harass, maim, and do all kinds of things to civil rights leaders. Nicole, I mean, this is extraordinary.
And what's extraordinary, KJ, is they can only prove it for 10 years. Let me just go down that rabbit hole. What if they've always been funding these activities?
Wow, yeah.
What if it's always been that way? This is what happens when we're not looking.
Oh, certainly. It was founded in 1971. I mean, I would argue that their goal is not to dismantle white supremacist groups. In reality, their goal is to dismantle America in general. They have a philosophy. One of their founders is, of course, Morris Dees, who represented a Klansman in 1961 and, of course, would go on to found the Southern Poverty Law Center. There's long been this kind of allyship, if you will, between hate groups and the Southern Poverty Law Center. And it's not anything new. It actually has existed over the course of the 20th century. I mean, as far back as 1922, we saw Edward Young Clark, who was the imperial wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. He met up with Marcus Garvey and said a lot of these things that we, the Klan, are being accused of in terms of terrorizing Negroes is actually not us. We don't know who's doing it, but it's certainly not us. Fast forward to 1938, J.B. Matthews, Hughes, a former communist who defected. He basically revealed to the HUAC committee that the Communist Party literally set up KKK chapters in places like Virginia and other places throughout the South, specifically to terrorize Negroes, and then sell the information to the press that, look, the Klan is terrorizing Negroes. It was creating this kind of climate, this kind of atmosphere to shape legislation and shape public opinion to move us more and more toward a socialist society. And I don't see the Southern Poverty Law Center doing anything different.
And if you study, anyone who's done a serious study of communism, this is the playbook. It doesn't matter who sows the discord. They will work with any group willing to create chaos.
When they're talking about setting up organizations and shell companies, you know, the next shirt we should make should say follow the money. Because that's, if you follow the money trail, you're going to find out. And from the bit that I've read about this case is that, you know, Biden's DOJ knew about it.
Right. We're going to talk about that.
Chose not to act.
Acting Attorney General, how did they get away with this for so long?
I mean, it's a great question. I said today during the press conference that we know that this investigation was opened during the Biden administration and then mysteriously closed. I really don't have any information about why it was closed. And then we started again last year. The FBI did, working with the U.S. Attorney in Alabama. And it's extraordinarily egregious. You just talked about it. But imagine a donor to the SPLC if they were told, by the way, we're going to give the money you're giving us to the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, like in some cases over $1 million. I mean, it's incredible.
Now, they say they're no longer using these informants in this way and that it was necessary because they had all sorts of threats against the organization, firebombing threats and other acts of purported violence. And that's why they had to use these informants. And to that, you say?
Well, to that, I say, for one, the indictment charges all the way through 2023. So I'm here to speak about what they're doing right now, but that indictment charges a long period of time through 2023. And second, and more importantly, there's no allegation or information in the indictment that suggests they shared that information with law enforcement. They have communicated.
They said they did.
Well, they have communicated when they so chose with law enforcement over the years. There's no information that we have that suggests that the money that they were paying to these informants and these members of these organizations, they then turned around and shared what they learned with law enforcement. To the contrary, or else we would have known from their own words that they had given this money to these guys, and we didn't.
Chose not to act. So I'd like to know, and I'm sure it's more than $3 million, but I think $3 million is what they can prove, and it begs the question: how many more of these civil rights era organizations can we prove that they're grifting us, that they're scamming the American people?
Easy. Just assume all of them. Number one, I laughed because I was not surprised at all. When we talk about on here about these NGOs and 501c3s, the shell games that they play, Cash Patel used the correct word, shell games. And yes, the Southern Poverty Law Center is a 501c3 in as much as it's a big organization. They don't necessarily get all of their money from the federal government, but because they are a nonprofit, they do get some taxpayer funded grants. Give us our money back, number one. Number two, I was looking at the indictment today, reading through the indictment, and I got to this section about the banking, how they set up these false accounts, basically, right? They had people who were, quote unquote, the CEO or the chief financial officer, and they set up bank accounts. But guess what? They didn't have ID. The companies that they were using to set the bank accounts under, they were fictitious. They were not even in existence, or they were false. I said, wait a minute. Do you mean since the Patriot Act, okay, because the Patriot Act was supposed to stop all this, it certainly stopped average American citizens from just going to the bank and opening up an account. You had to damn near give your mother's maiden name, bloodline, all that stuff just to open up a simple bank account. But these jokers could open up accounts without any legitimation, no ID, basically. That's what it sounds like. So this is why I say these 501c3s are a joke. This is why I'll say our government is doing every damn thing but what it needs to do, okay? And the American people, we're still getting all of the FUs and whatever else, and we're the ones made to literally carry the load. I mean, this is utterly inexcusable. I know they're finding it now, but maybe, just maybe, if our government actually focused on the fraud, waste, and abuse that it needs to do, then the American people, we can get rid of some of these burdens, and we can just live our lives like we're supposed to. And in the meantime, give us our damn money back.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you, well, I have two questions. So I'm a little confused on how the government is involved with this.
What do you mean? As far as what?
Because I thought that this was the SPLC was a separate entity, but an arm of how it was an entity that the Democrats were using to fraud or to commit these frauds against conservatives.
That's part of it. The SPLC is its own nonprofit. It's a huge nonprofit. They apparently, according to the indictment, like you said, they get donations, they get taxpayer funds because they are a 501c3. So that's the federal angle, if you will, where they can get grants. They get that money, and then what they do, they pay. It reminded me of Safe Streets. You know that the word Safe Street, what is it called? The violence interrupters. They pay these people, but on the other side, the people that they're paying to stop, quote unquote, to stop the racism, they're paying the opposite people to go out and create. Yes. So this is what it's a fraud.
But why are they doing this? Who are they doing this on behalf of?
They're eligible to apply for federal grants, which is our tax money, right? And they can collect donations. But in order to meet the grant standard, I mean, if theoretically there are no Proud Boys, because they think the Proud Boys is a hate group. If there are no active race groups, then there really is no need for what the Southern Poverty Law Center does, right? So they have to manufacture the incidents in order to qualify for the money to continue to make the donations so they can all get paid. And they strike a blow for their quote unquote cause of driving division among Americans.
Do you believe that we will be able to connect the dots to them being used by the actual Democrat Party officials, people in power within the Democrat Party?
That may be, but even if that may be the case, that doesn't have to be, because what they're doing on their own right is illegal.
Yes, they're committing fraud, but the fraud that makes it a federal thing, it's fraud against the banks, right? It's highly illegal to open up a fraudulent bank account. Being a shell corporation sounds kind of harmless, except for the FDIC, right? All of these accounts are federally insured up to a certain dollar amount. And when you open up a bank account, all that small print that nobody reads, this is why they're in hot water.
The SPLC, it wasn't like they had their hand or their agenda was in all different pots. It went one way. I mean, these people, the indictment said they paid field sources, were actively promoting racist groups while the SPLC publicly denounced those same groups on their website. And the groups were against the right.
Remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
So I think that's very important for us to get out here. Okay. These aren't this group was not, it wasn't doing different things all over the place. They specifically were working to cause turmoil for Republicans, for conservatives, for Christian conservatives.
Just for Americans.
Alleged that they helped coordinate transportation for people attending Charlottesville's Unite the Right rally.
Charlottesville Unite the Right rally. Were they involved in that?
Yes. So what we allege in the indictment and what the grand jury found is that one of the individuals that they paid was one of the folks who helped organize that terrible event. And so so imagine what we're talking about, Laura. We're talking about an organization that actively came out and just screamed it from the top of their lungs.
So just so people understand watching this, did these informants in some cases, given the evidence you've seen, actually initiate what would ultimately be these activities? And obviously Charlottesville ended with a tragedy.
Well, we know that they were part of those. They were part of it. Whether they were the leaders or the initiators, that'll come out, I think, eventually. But what we do know is that the very entities that this group was raising money to go against are the very entities that they were taking the money in and paying to these entities and these individuals associated with those groups.
What was the money used for?
Well, we don't know, because again, all we know is that they set up these fictitious bank accounts.
Fake names, like the Constitution Group or whatever it was called. Then they had one called Fox Photography.
Right, completely fictitious as far as the investigation has shown, and they were using it simply to funnel money to these individuals. The indictment talks about a situation where they paid an individual to steal documents from the organization and then return the documents, and then when somebody else took the hit for it, they paid that person too to take the hit.
When we saw these this type of things come up, like Charlottesville, and any of these they were involved in a lot of racial hoaxes. It always benefited the Democrats, okay? And what happened? The Democrats capitalized on many of these hoaxes, of these racialized events.
On television, remember seeing those neo-Nazis and Klansmen and white supremacists coming out of fields with lighted torches. And remember what the president said when asked?
And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
Their veins bulging.
He said specifically that he was condemning them.
No, he did not. He said he walked out and he said, let's get this straight. The veins bulging on their, as they were screaming. Remember, just close your eyes and picture what it was. Their veins bulging. Their veins bulging. Nazi sympathizers carrying Nazi fags.
Veins bulging.
It's their veins bulging. Veins bulging.
Veins bulging.
How are you, baby? How old are you? Their veins bulging. It's their veins bulging. Their veins they're bulging. Their veins bulging. Have you ever heard this president say one negative thing about white supremacists? Have you ever heard it?
Racism is evil.
Damn it.
And those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as America.
Of course he did. But they continued this idea of saying, according to what we saw, the SPLC and the hoaxes and stuff, they rode that donkey until the donkey was dead and tired. They rode that whore all night long till she was raw and used. They continued over and over again, and they did it. Why? Because they orchestrated the whole thing.
That's the point. And so again, they rode that donkey until he didn't bulge any damn more. I mean, he had no more.
He was hee-hawing all night long.
Yes, he did. Look, above and beyond, again, I don't dispute that Democrats were involved in this. I'm not disputing that at all. But above and beyond that, the absolute egregious thing that the SPLC is being accused of and indicted for, they stoked racism and division and hate among Americans who otherwise get along pretty well, relatively well.